If you've read the book The Monster of Florence by Douglas Preston and Mario Spezi, you might expect the Netflix limited series of the same name to deliver a lot of the same information. You'd be wrong, though. 8 double murders, 17 years of terror, always the same weapon, a .22 caliber Beretta. This is one of the longest and most complex Italian investigations into the first and most brutal serial killer in the country's history, the Monster of Florence. This is a 4-episode limited series that, in a nutshell, examines 4 closely tied men who all seem to have the same penchant for treating women terribly. The case itself, it is devastating and heinous. 8 couples murdered and many times shot and then mutilated. The crimes span decades, and despite many leads, suspects, even people going to prison, the case ultimately remains unsolved. Now, the episodes for this, they are meaty and emotionally heavy. Not only do we get to see the murders of couples happen, but each episode just essentially follows one of the suspects to give us their backstory, their upbringing, relationship issues, and anger triggers. And we're not meant to like any of these 4 that are presented as our suspects, which I think is a good thing because they're all dirtbags. I mean, they're not even portrayed as charming with a dark side. They're just dark and terrible. And I don't mind having such a direct villain within the story. It makes it easy to root against them. The issue I have, though, specifically for this production, is that some names and events have been changed. So this ventures into more of a dramatization of what could have happened rather than what did occur. The police investigation angle is sparingly used within the narrative, typically only drawn on to create the impetus for a flashback as a suspect is called in for questioning and then they're recounting whereabouts or history. I was expecting a bit more of the investigative side within this show, because within the factual happenings, it is a crap show of accusations, potential cover-ups, multiple unreliable reports, sketchy and intentionally misleading testimonies, wrongful imprisonments, and legal system corruption. All of that then wrapped around abhorrent crimes of unimaginable violence. That would make for a compelling and intense watch. What we end up with here, though, is a slow unveiling of hideous people who may have been involved in the crimes, without the pounding urgency to solve the case, as I'm sure there actually was within real life. And don't hear me say that I am looking for something that was just fast-paced and full of amped-up excitement. This has some of the same feels as one of the Red Riding crime dramas. I enjoyed those. But this delivers more speculation and an unknown amount of dramatic license to build the story rather than simply using the facts, warts and all, to present the accounts. In this instance, the truth is way more intense and captivating than what this show delivered. Honestly, I would have much preferred a documentary that just laid out facts, providing interviews with any who are still alive, and then supplement those with archival interviews and news footage, along with any modern insights or efforts into the investigation. The story's harrowing, but also engrossing despite being horrifyingly macabre. And maybe I'm a bit more frustrated with this presentation because I am familiar with the case and have read a book that is very detailed in its collection of facts. But I also tried to take in this series from the perspectives of someone completely unfamiliar. It's got some decent drama, but I still have difficulty feeling as though I was seeing an engaging crime drama ensue. And yeah, the violence is terrible, and at times unflinching in its portrayal. But the other side of the coin is that investigation, and that's delivered in a lifeless and lackluster way, missing so much of the urgent necessity that should have been present when a vicious serial killer is on the loose and actively increasing their body count. The story also feels as though it's missing large gaps in fact-finding and just general police procedure. The only investigative portions we see are detectives and judicial people going to crime scenes after the attacks, and then when calling in someone for an optional testimony long after the crime has been committed. For this presentation, the storytelling is just as shoddy as the police work that we're shown. I can't tell you how long I've been waiting to watch this series. Ever since I heard it was coming, I have been impatiently watching the calendar to see how this case is presented. This is one of those true crime stories that is ripe for storytelling, not only because of the longevity of the case and the atrocious nature of the attacks, but also because it's still unsolved. I can even see how it could have been something that inspired Zodiac, because he began shortly after the first kills of the monster, and his tactics are slightly similar. Now, while the production is outstanding in its visuals, set, and costume design, and then commitment to the theme, The storytelling falls short by not delving more deeply into many of the other aspects and suspects of this true crime tragedy. Patient pacing combined with non-urgent investigative action drags the storytelling into a woeful trudge that's made worse by the inclusion of undetermined dramatic license. I'm still game to see a documentary on this. It definitely deserves the attention to detail. There's sex, nudity, a lot of profanity, and then a bunch of gruesome violence. I give Monster of Florence 2 out of 5 couches. I mean, definitely check out the book of the same name by Douglas Preston and Mario Spezi if you haven't already and you're intrigued by the case. All right, what are you binging right now? Anything great that you can recommend to me? I would love to hear about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.